Welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, and this is
Dr. Crystal.
It's that time of year again, believe it or not, when kids are going back to school. I know you're getting ready for this, and you're starting to think about lunches.
That's right.
I mean, that's
the pressure.
It's a lot, right? Healthy lunch, how to store things, so on. So we're gonna cover a lot of this, and it's not just for the kids too, right?
Yes.
It's for us as well. It's important for all of us. I told you, Dr. Crystal, my little story. Well, when I was gaining some weight during the COVID years, right? I realized a lot of mine was bad lunches. It was too many calories, lots of carbs, because it was so easy to do.
Well, when you're not prepared, then you end up ordering out.
Yeah, you got to prepare for sure. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the foundations of a healthy lunch. We're going to do a little quiz called Pack It or Leave It. And then we're going to go over some great food safety tips. And to do all this with us, we have a guest.
Yes, we are joined by our special registered dietitian guest, Toby Amador. She has over 20 years of experience in the food and nutrition industry. She's a Wall Street Journal best-selling cookbook author, spokesperson, speaker, and recipe developer. She's the author of 10 books with 9 books. Her 10th book will be out in October. And so we're excited to have you, Toby. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're one of the things, your cookbook, we were talking before we went live with Toby. And I got to tell you, I was impressed to find out that you actually do all the recipes yourself.
I know. Test them out.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
Adjust.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and let's get started with her.
All right, Toby. So first of all, thank you again for joining us. Toby's back, by the way. She joined us on our podcast. I have to just give a shout out to Live Forever. It's our podcast all about food safety. And so today we're talking about those healthy lunches. And to get us started, Toby, how would you describe the foundations of a healthy lunch?
So the foundation of a healthy lunch is really like any meal should be. So half the plate, or if it's a lunch box, should be fruits and vegetables. And then a quarter of your plate should be protein, hopefully lean protein. And the other quarter of the plate, that's your starches, which you want to try to get your whole grains.
All right. So what do you find most parents, kind of those that they're putting in their lunches out of the healthy vegetables, the starches, the whole grain, and the protein? Where are parents missing out when we're packing our lunches for kids?
Really the fruits and vegetables. But I mean, it's tough because you have to also get the child to want to pick up the fruits and vegetables. So you want to send them right to school with a full lunchbox and get an empty lunchbox when you get home from them eating it. Right?
You mentioned, so I like the way you described it, just like look at your own plate, like what you want to see. We talk about that a lot on this show is, what's on your plate, how much color, how much veggies, all that kind of stuff. But you do mention the protein, but most kids are probably getting just sandwiches, right?
Sandwiches, chips.
That's still kind of the way it goes. So what about some of those old standards like peanut butter and jelly? Is that a good way to go? Or would you suggest more maybe tuna type sandwiches or something along the lines? Do you have any opinion there on sandwiches?
It's really whatever the child wants to eat. We do want to watch, just like anything, the saturated fat, the added sugar and sodium. So you can actually buy, if you want the cold cuts, they do have low sodium cold cuts. It's very, very readily available these days over the counter. So if you want to give them a whole grain bread, or you find a bread, they even have, some companies have like a white bread that's actually made from quinoa. You can find them over the counter. So you can give them a sandwich, put in tuna, you have to see what they like. I actually mix, what do I mix? And mix an egg salad with avocado. And one of my daughters really liked that. To do, it's like an egg salad avocado. Really like that. So I'll send her in. She's in high school with that. Peanut butter and jelly is just fine, but they also have like a little bit of honey and peanut butter. So you don't want the honey and the jelly there. So you want, added sugar needs to be used responsibly. It's not no added sugar. Added sugar, the dietary guideline says you can use up to 10% of your total calories can be for added sugar, and that's for children too. So if it's in that sandwich, to make sure they're going to eat the peanut butter, which is a great source of protein, or any nut butter for that matter, then that's okay. Okay, you don't want to drown it. A little teaspoon is fine. But that is one way, one option, plant or animal protein, whatever the child will eat.
So a lot of kids, though, are still getting just the cafeteria meals too, right?
That's true.
What's your opinion about how the schools are doing when it comes to a healthy
Good
lunch?
question.
Are we missing something there with a lot of those school lunches, or are they doing pretty good?
Well, they are regulated. So whatever is in the dietary guidelines, they do follow. I mean, but sometimes they might do, the pizza and the tomato there is count as a vegetable, which it is. But children do have choices that they can take during lunch. And there is also one of the things on the plate we have to remember, or in the lunch, is something of dairy, whether you want to choose cow's milk dairy or soy. Those are the two options that dietary guidelines recommends because of all the nutrition in them. So you do want to get that within the box, and then a healthy fat like a vinaigrette or a little bit of avocado if they have it. But you look at the lunchroom and they do have flavored milks or white milk, and that's okay. Again, if you're going to have your added sugar, then have it in something that provides 13 essential nutrients, and not necessarily like in a candy bar. So you have to look at where you're getting that added sugar.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the other piece with the school lunches is having a conversation with your kids, because how do you know what they're choosing? It's designed to provide the variety of foods and really give you the protein and the carbs and the fats that's needed. But the kids may only choose the pizza without the veggies.
Get nothing else, yeah.
Right. And something, they have schedules out, so they can look it up, and you can ask your child, do you eat this? Do you eat that? And then they can send them, if they want, separately with like a little bit of fruit that maybe they like better than what the school for me. I've counseled clients like that when we were talking about school lunches. So that really helps to communicate between the child and the caregiver. Really important.
It matches what you said at the beginning about planning.
Yes.
I wasn't planning for a while, especially during those COVID years, and my lunch calories went sky high.
Yeah.
And so planning with your kid, looking at what they're going to be eating. Let's look at Monday's lunch. Do you like that?
Yes.
And then maybe fill in that gap.
Yes, and planning out. And that's something that I do now. I sit down and I kind of look at their lunchbox and think, okay, do we have some good protein? All right, let's make sure we have carbs, and let's make sure, and we're not just loading up with carbs. You often find that with the granola bars or the fruit bars, and then you go and
wait, but don't go. Wait, that's part of our quiz.
I know.
You're getting ahead of yourself. Matter of fact, let's go to the quiz.
Yes.
So we got a pack it or leave it quiz. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna say the thing, the item, and we're gonna first ask the audience, and then I'm gonna get Dr. Crystal's opinion, and then Toby, you're gonna give us the final say, right?
You got it.
Here's our pack it or leave it quiz. Number one item, yogurt. Dr. Crystal, what do you think?
Yes, I'm all about yogurt, but I do make sure I'm looking at the added sugars, as Toby mentioned.
Toby, what do you think about yogurt in a lunchbox?
Okay, so my first cookbook was the Greek Yogurt Kitchen. So I'm a huge fan. But yeah, I agree. There's some yogurts that have a lot of these sugary toppers that aren't that healthy. So you can either, by the way, send it as dessert. So that's where the added sugar is. But I rather, you can send some fresh fruit, or you can send some, something to granola or nuts to put on the yogurt if you want, if they allow nuts.
Yeah, kids really like that. I usually give them the yogurt, and then I have a container with the compartments, and they like to kind of be able to build their own little yogurt, a mini yogurt bar.
Yeah.
And then that encourages them to eat it.
Okay, so it's official. Yogurt is a go. Just watch the sugar.
Right.
Watch the toppings. Okay, all right. Pack it or leave it. Number two item, dried fruits. Dr. Crystal.
Not a fan.
Not a fan. Why? Why?
Well, okay, because the dried fruit, the water has been removed, and so now you do have. Well, you may get some fiber, some concentrated sugar. So I just prefer the whole fruit.
The whole fruit,
and it's easier for me just to grab
the whole fruit,
grab the whole fruit, throw it in.
Toby, what do you think about dried fruit packets and stuff?
I'm actually a fan. I like them. And I'll tell you why. Yes, they are, so the water's evaporated, so it is more concentrated. It just means that it's half the portion of the fruit. So it'll have the same sugar as a fruit, but you want it to have like a quarter cup, not like a half a cup.
Okay.
And to me, it's easier because one of my kids loves like dried mango and loves dried apricot. So I'll do like a trail mix with them, and then you could put some, whole grain cereal if you want nuts, or if you want a little bit of dark chocolate chips in there.
Yeah.
Kind of, or kind of play around with it, whatever they like. We even like, they'll take dates and stick an almond inside of it, like pitted dates. And that's like, or sometimes she'll put almond butter in there too. That's one of my youngest.
That sounds pretty good.
Now, question: do you like the dried? Which version of the dried fruit? What about the freeze dried? Now, I have tried that, like the freeze dried strawberries and.
Again, it's concentrated, so you want the smaller portion, and the kids might like it for the crunch. So it's really nice on yogurt.
Okay, so the final verdict is, if you do smaller amounts, we're going to say dried fruits are okay.
Okay. Yes. Make sure you watch the portion.
Yeah, watch the portion. All right, here's number 3. Pack it or leave it. Granola bars. Dr. Crystal?
There's so many options. If you can find a good one, but you may want to consider making your own granola where you can control the ingredients, because a lot of the fruit that's in the granola bars are sweetened. Like they're using the dried fruit. So it goes back to dried fruit. And then the dried fruit is pre-sweetened dried fruit, and then they're putting all of that in with more sugar. I just find them to be sugar
labels.
bars.
Maybe just look at the label. Don't overdo it. Toby, how do you feel about granola bars?
So I agree with you, actually, because a lot of times they may use a sugary substance to also help coagulate everything together. I mean, that's just a lot of times how it's done. However, you have to look at today's market. There's so many new brands that have really tried hard to decrease that sugar content, especially in children's bars. So, check the labels, compare, because your child might be hungry after school. And I rather them eat, you know what I mean? So I always pack like for a plane ride, for a bus trip, I always have those granola bars just in case. Keep on hand like a better for you brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also have to think about, I'm not sure how often your kids have PE and if they're even doing it at all the schools, but my children have PE every day. And so their PE is intense.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, they are running, they're sweating, they're really burning calories. So you can take that into consideration as well. Yeah. Are they just sitting in the classroom all day? Or are they kind of active? Are they participating in sports after school? Yeah. So then you can kind of add in a few of those things that you may think aren't probably I think the best, that may give them a little extra sugar.
I think a lot of it comes down to looking at labels, knowing how much sugar they're getting, and I know there's bars out there that are more protein now. So I think you just kind of have to look and read. So we're going to go with maybe. On granola bars. All right, how about this one? Pack it or leave it. Now, let me tell you something with this one. I grew up on this. In the 70s, these things were huge. We would eat I can't say that.
Don't say it.
I just have to say what it is. Fruit cocktails. Now, when I was in school, they came in these little like cup things, and you'd open it like this. And the first thing we would do is we would drink it because back then they were put in syrup.
There?
It wasn't just like their own juices and water. It was syrup.
Many of them are still in syrup.
So what do you feel about fruit cocktails?
Well, if it's in real fruit juice, not every day. And I kind of look at the lunch as a whole. And I think that's important as well, is kind of not just focusing in on this one thing. As a whole, when I look at everything that they will have, for that day, will this fit? Maybe it's okay.
Maybe.
It's
Okay.
not all the time.
Toby?
So we have to remember that 85% of Americans, that includes kids, don't eat their fruit every day. And so canned fruit does count. However, by the way, we used to look for the cherries first in the fruit cocktail.
I thought that's what he was going to say.
No,
I mean,
we just wanted the
those
syrup that they were putting in. We didn't care about the fruit in there. Yeah.
So, but I agree with you. You have to look what it's packed in. So it could be packed in water. So then they're just getting the fruit. And remember, they're packed at their peak of freshness. I've actually seen the cannery. I've seen stuff go from the ground being picked to the cannery, and the way they quote unquote process it, and it's at the peak of freshness, like within a few hours, they're getting from out of the ground into the can.
That's awesome.
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So extra light syrup, if you can't find anything else, that's like the bottom, but like water in its own juices, or if you have to 100% juice, all of those count towards your daily servings of fruit. Yeah. So we have to remember that.
Well, speaking of the juice, right? Mm-hmm. The last pack it or leave it are the juice boxes. Because you see those all over the place, right? What do you think about, what do you think about the juice boxes?
I don't even buy them.
You don't even buy them. Toby, what do you feel about juice boxes?
I never gave my kids juice until I think they were like 2 or 3. My son doesn't even like it. But if you choose juice, you actually, the American Academy of Pediatrics does have guidelines. So younger kids, so nothing under 2 and above are 4 fluid ounces. So that's not very much. And then it goes up by age. I think no more than 8 fluid ounces for towards teenagers. So if they're getting, remember, it should be 100% juice. Let me explain that juices, they do have vitamin C, so you do want that in there. They usually, but they also come with like 100% pomegranate juice. It actually has polyphenols in there. Orange juice. They do have phytonutrients in there that some people forget about. So I'm okay with it once in a while. Remember, I do want them to drink milk also with the 13 essential nutrients, calcium, vitamin D, and potassium, 3 nutrients most folks, including kids, don't get enough of. So if they want a little bit of 100% juice, a lot of the juices are not 100%.
That's important.
Yeah.
And what about concentrate, not from concentrate? Do you have a preference with that?
As long as it's 100% juice, I'm okay. And honestly, it also has to do with affordability, if you can find it. I mean, that's the most important thing for me is 100%. And
in the old days, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, the concentrated like orange juice came in the frozen section in these little tubes.
Oh yeah, they still come.
They're still. See, I don't buy any of this
they still have it.
And I used to love just like squeezing it out of the thing into the pitcher. Okay, so they still have that stuff.
They still have it, and I saw some research that those concentrates have more vitamin C. It's similar to what Toby mentioned with the fruit cups. It's because they kind of get the fruit and then immediately kind of freeze it. You're preserving that vitamin C in that state.
So there's our pack it and leave it. I think that's very helpful for people. But Toby, is there anything, I'm just going on to the next section. Yeah. Is there anything that's definitely a no-no? Like there's no way you would put this in a lunch for your child or even for yourself?
Yeah, don't put snack food, like they're not junk food. So empty calorie donuts and cookies and candy bars, children really need their nutrition. Adults too. We need those nutrients, and we need every opportunity to get them in. So you do want things that will provide nutrients to you and your child when you're packing the lunch.
And speaking of nutrients, we want them to be safe as well.
And last.
And
don't go
last.
bad.
So that's our last section. We want to talk to you about how do we keep the foods cold that need to be cold and hot foods hot. So let's start with the cold foods.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on those ice packets?
And don't you want to tell her that you had an experiment with your husband?
There's a debate in my home because we have like the little flat ice packets, and my husband only puts 2, and we put them at the bottom of their lunch boxes. And I'm always like, you have to get one more, put one more. And so when I pack their lunch, they have 3. He has 2. We did a little test. And so I showed him when their lunch boxes, when we come home, it's still cool. Like if you pull out any
With the
foods that
three, the three you put it.
that they didn't eat, it's still cool to the touch. So what do you think about that?
I think first you need to ask when the child's having lunch. Sometimes they have it at 10 in the morning, and sometimes they have it at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, the late lunch. So you might want to pack a couple extra if it's the late lunch. I think that's like, and then you feel bad. Then you may have to pack the granola if they're having the 10 o'clock lunch. Poor child.
Right.
Hungry by the end of the day. So that's certainly a thing. And then I was going to say with the yogurt, if you have single serve yogurts, you can actually freeze them. And then if they stay cold, it's like almost having ice cream, but it has like a frozen dessert. Yeah, I had that the other day. I was in a hotel and my froze up. I was like, this is good. There was like a little bit of treat, but I was getting the nutrition in there. So if you freeze some of these bottles or, anything that's, can be frozen, then you can keep it actually colder for longer too, another way.
What about when kids, I don't know if your kids are like this. Me and my brother, we ate everything. There was no leftovers in our lunches, but do your kids ever come home with food left over?
Yes.
And do they want to eat that? Like at what point is it not good to let's not eat the food in that lunchbox right now?
Oh, for sure. That's a great question. Because going back to my kids, my daughter finishes her lunch or she doesn't bring it home. So I don't know what happens during the day.
You have no idea if she's eating anything. The poor thing is starving.
But my son, he will bring food home. And oftentimes on the ride home, he starts digging in his lunchbox. Now because they were just out on the playground. Yeah. So I'm picking them up and he starts eating, or we get home and he sees what I'm cooking and he doesn't want it. He was like, I just want to finish my sandwich. No. So what do you think about that, Toby?
Usually the rule of thumb for cold foods, as long as they've been kept cold beforehand, meaning like you didn't leave it on the counter, make the sandwich at 4 a.m, left it for a couple hours and then packed it. But as long as you're, doing it right away, it should be like between 4 to 6 hours really until you eat it. If they're eating it on the way home, not the best thing, but not the worst thing. If then you throw it in the fridge for the next day, that's where the limit is. Like, on the way home is the last place really you should be eating it. And then it should be tossed after that. Really, that's the last. It really should be tossed after lunch time and they're not eating it.
See, I think that's best. Yeah, let's don't take.
And then what about keeping hot foods hot? Do you recommend a thermos or any other strategies?
Yeah, I'll cook the food. I'll make sure it reaches 165 before I'll put it at least 165. So I'll microwave it super duper hot or cook it stovetop like a soup my kids in the winter like. I'll put it in a thermos and I'll close it. That should keep it because some of them really like soup. I have a couple of kids, so some like soup. After that, when they get home, that's it. That's done. No more.
Yeah.
Or like leftovers will warm up really nicely. Sometimes I have a chili they want it the next day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Right? That's an easy one to do. Put in the thermos, but do heat it. Don't just put it in cold. Like heat it in the microwave or stovetop and then put it in there.
That's a good tip. And another trick I've read is if you boil some water, so boil water in a kettle and pour that hot boiling water in the thermos first. So you heat the thermos, let it sit, and then you pour that out and put the food in.
Oh, okay. I guess.
Yeah, no, it just makes things hot. Oh.
You guys are the ones kids. I don't do any of this.
I'm always nervous, and then you touch base with your kids too. When we first started this, I said, "Was your food hot? Was it too hot? Was it and find out the temperature when they open the thermos, and they're like, "No, it was good, Mommy."
Yeah, they're so cute. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Toby. So Toby Amador is a registered dietitian with now 10 cookbooks, basically, right?
Yeah,
superstar.
You have the book there with you, don't you?
Oh, yeah. This is my 10th one, which is good for kids and adults. Up Your Veggies, Flexitarian Recipes for the Whole Family. So this will be out next week.
Love it.
Yeah, and I bet kids probably, because you're also kind of cooking for your kids too a little bit, right? Like, what do they like, and making sure those recipes.
Those now they're 16 and 18 and a lot of the cookbooks. So yeah, they love when Mom cooks, but a lot of times we cook together.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, very nice. And where can people find the book when it goes out? I think October 3rd, you said?
Yep. Amazon is always, all my 10 cookbooks are on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere you can buy books. And then my website will have a link to that at tobyamadornutrition.com.
Perfect. Toby, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure. And for the audience, don't forget, we also have a nice article, right?
Yes.
Lunchbox ideas at lifeextension.com/lunchbox. Go check that out. That's kind of a cool article. And don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. You can click interested on your little Facebook post. And that way, when we're about to go live, it tells you we're about to go live.
And turn on your Facebook notifications.
Yeah, you got to turn that on. That's good, right? So don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
We'll see you next time.